Hey, today here on our Member Spotlight videos, we have an attorney in studio with us. His name is Roger Heath. He's one half of the McCurdy Heath law firm, proud chamber members, and we're proud to have him here in studio today. Roger, welcome aboard. How are you?
Thank you, Brian. I'm very well, thank you.
And I was reading bios and stuff on you before you came in, and you're not originally from Texas. You grew up out in New Mexico.
That's right.
What was that like growing up out there?
Idyllic, wonderful. It was the 1980s, sunny days and BMX bikes. You leave the house as early as you bothered to get up, especially during the summer, and go all day and drink out of water hoses, and nothing to worry about or fear, except, as the bio does say, the occasional bully, of course.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that briefly. I'm going to get into the practice, but I was fascinated because more than once in your bio you talked about bullies, and it's interesting how the bully people, for lack of a better word, helped lead you to where you are today.
Yeah, I developed the only thing that could ruin our day as kids is you would run into the bullies, right? And they just couldn't be happy unless they were making somebody else miserable. So early on, my dad, I was an only kid, so I didn't have older brothers to beat me up. So he put me into boxing. And I boxed at the boys' club, got into wrestling and all of that stuff. And so I got to where I could handle the bullies for myself and my circle of friends, maybe. But there was still a lingering distaste for them, certainly. And as I grew up, I noticed the bullies, didn't ride bicycles. A lot of times they chaired insurance companies and things like that, and they would bully injured people.
Right.
I first learned about that. My dad got injured, at his company, and no fault of his own. He was an electrician, and they re-energized something he had de-energized and locked out, cut the lock off, took the tag off, re-energized it, and he was horribly injured. And immediately, almost the blame shifting and that sort of thing started. And it was probably another kind of seminal moment in my bringing up when I came back in, saw him sitting at our table, and he's burned and disfigured at that point, and it's the kind of thing you don't forget.
It kind of planted a seed.
I guess.
So when did you decide, not that you just wanted to be an attorney, but specifically a trial lawyer?
Well, I won my first trial right off the bat, and it taught me a couple of valuable lessons. Now, that was just in high school. It was just a mock trial. But the lessons it taught me was, one, it felt good to stand up for somebody and win because I thought our side was right. So we did that. It taught me about winning humbly, maybe. Second, it taught me that if you win, it does bring clients, because they decided to have a trial the next day. After we'd had our mock trial, everybody had so much fun. We did it again. Only this time it wasn't mock. One of the students was accused of breaking a rule. He was allowed to select a lawyer. Well, I had the privilege of being the winningest lawyer in our high school, and so he selected me. And one of the lessons I learned, Brian, was about the winning humbly. The lawyer that I had defeated the day before had ascended to the bench, and today she was the judge. And we didn't win that second trial. And but that maybe helped plant a seed. I was always an avid reader. I began reading about, I grew up again in the late 70s, early 80s. Manson was still a big deal. And growing up in New Mexico, all of our TV stations came from California.
Right.
That's how I became a Lakers fan, Dodgers fan, that kind of thing, because we didn't have pro sports teams. And so we would get the West Coast feed. And so Manson was all over the news still because the trials and all of that stuff. And I found it terrifying, as a kid. But then along came Vincent Bugliosi, and, he prosecuted them. And it just seemed like he had really stood up against those kind of bullies. And so I went on to read his book, and ultimately Vincent won 105 out of his 106 trials. That led me to Jerry Spence, the only more winning lawyer. He never lost a jury trial in my lifetime from 1969 to 2009. And just between all of that, it planted a seed. Now, I wasn't able to pursue that seed right away. I grew up very working class. My parents very hardworking. My dad had an 8th grade education. My mom went back to what they call night school to complete her GED, and became a real estate agent. And so ultimately, as predictable, I didn't finish high school right away either. So I wound up married with 2 kids. I was a construction worker, and construction work got slow, and it became clear that maybe I needed to change careers. And it was actually my wife, of all people, who said, well, you're really fascinated with lawyers. Why don't you become a lawyer?
Wow.
Which sounded crazy to me in that moment. And I said, I don't know how you do that. I didn't know anything about law school or anything else. And she said, well, you got to go to college. I said, I don't think they let me in college. I didn't go to high school. She said, you're already in college. Well, I didn't know what she meant by that. I was in the apprenticeship program for my union. And I was in a pilot program that they had just started where they had partnered with the county community colleges, and we were getting an abysmally small amount of credit for our apprenticeship. And they'd been sending report cards home. I didn't even know they did that, but that's how she knew I was already in college. So she called college and asked if I could take some other classes. And ultimately, that's how I became a UTA alum. I went up to meet Dr. Alan Repko because he was the pre-law person at UTA.
Right.
So I went up to tell him, I want to be pre-law. Now, the first day I show up and I'm in my construction garb and I've got my little girl with me and her hands are sticky from some kind of candy. And if you ever met Dr. Repko, his eye was really on her because he was very fastidious about his place there. And he was a little afraid she was going to reach for something, I think. And, you know, he talked to me about how there are a lot of things you can do other than law. And so I thanked him and I left and I went back and I kept going to school and I came back a semester or 2 later in a suit. He didn't remember we'd ever met. And fortunately that day, Bryan, he decided I would be an excellent candidate for UTA pre-law. So I wound up doing 2.5 years through my bachelor's degree and then 2.5 years through law school because I had a wife and 2 kids. I needed to get on with this. So I was going, you know, summers, Maymester, mini-mester. If you would let us get credit, I'd get credit.
Right.
Dual enrollment for a while, whatever we could do. So her crazy idea, 5 years from no high school diploma to a law degree.
Well, and then you got into trial law. Now, let me ask you about trial law because most people, maybe myself included, trial law, that's the guys you see on TV. Are there a lot of misconceptions people have about exactly what a trial attorney does?
Maybe, but in our world, I mean, trial law, that is what we mean. People that intend to try their cases to a jury. And that's very much what McCurdy Heath is about. We don't take cases. I never take a case that I wouldn't be willing to take in front of a jury. Now, it's always up to the defendant whether we wind up in front of a jury or not. If they're willing to take responsibility earlier than that, real responsibility, we're always very reasonable about that. If they're not, we're always very ready to try a case.
And take care of them.
I absolutely love the courtroom, and I trust yours more than anything.
As good of an attorney you are, you and your firm, you're not the only ones out there. So when someone's out looking for an attorney, they need an attorney, what are some of the things they need to be looking for? What's some mistakes they make when they're picking an attorney and some advice you might have?
Well, I think people often, they just call whatever attorney they know, and they assume that's going to be right attorney for that kind of case. Right. Or they just call the loudest person from TV or radio. And they don't really realize that that's advertising. And what you really need is the right lawyer. And so I always invite all of our friends, I invite everybody, just call me. If I'm not the right lawyer, I'll tell you, but more than that, I'll help you find the right lawyer for what you're looking for. But if we are the right lawyer, then I'm going to take your case and be candid. You're always going to be able to talk to me. That's another thing people don't realize about some of the big advertisers. They want to get on and say, oh, we've won billions. When I was first starting out, Bryan, you know, a friend of mine who was a very successful trial lawyer said, you know, all of these guys want to brag, hey, I got this guy $30 million. I'm a great lawyer, right? He said, what if it was a $200 million case? Now what kind of result was $30 million? And that's the problem. You have no way to gauge that, no barometer. And so I would encourage people to take their eyes off of that kind of stuff. You'll notice on our website, yeah, we've recovered, I don't know how many, multiple, at this point, 9+ figures a long time ago. But you're not going to find that on our website because it really has nothing to do with your case.
No.
You know, and so the real question is, what can I do for you? And so I think the right lawyer is going to be the lawyer, you know, this local chamber, for instance. That's what the local chamber is all about, right? Getting you a roofer that's not some anonymous guy from off somewhere. Oh, we're really based out of Indiana and we just hired some salesmen. And when the storm's gone, we're gone. No, you're dealing with a local guy who lives here. His kids go to school here. He's going to be here. And so he takes care of his community. Well, that's the kind of law firm McCurdy Heath is. We're a law firm in the community that wants to take care of people in the community. And so that's what I would say you want to do when you select a lawyer. Select a confident lawyer, you know, which we absolutely are, but also select a lawyer that's willing to take personal time for your case and set aside time for your case, a lawyer you can talk to.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting and comfortable things that you just said is the fact that when somebody calls, they can talk to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's very important.
Well, all of my significant cases, I can honestly say my entire career, my clients have had my cell phone number. I got a call from a client on the way here, you know, and she's just checking out because we've got court Thursday. Do we still have court Thursday? Yeah, so far we do. We'll see if by Thursday the other side is decided, but right now, see you Thursday.
I think it's just fascinating, Roger, and we got to split out now, but it's fascinating to me anytime I sit down with someone successful like yourself to look at their background to where it all started. And from a little kid out in New Mexico, learning to box, learning to wrestle, defend himself, defend his friends, that defense thing has always been there. And you look out for the other guy, and you still do that today with McCurdy Heath.
Right.
Fascinating. Well, thanks for sitting in with us today. That's about it. Appreciate your time.
Enjoyed it.
Appreciate everything you do, and certainly appreciate your membership here in the chamber. Thank you for that.
All right.
All right, folks. Thank you very much. If you're looking for a good attorney, here's a great attorney right here. One of the many great members here at your Chamber of Commerce. Take care.